He stood on those courthouse steps, smirking, and told her she'd be poor forever. He said it loud enough for strangers to hear. He wanted witnesses to her failure. She didn't argue. She didn't cry. She didn't even flinch. She just looked at him one last time and walked away. What Alex Scott didn't know, as he straightened his coat and celebrated his victory on those cold stone steps, was that the woman he'd just mocked had a father named Raymond Trevor. And Raymond Trevor was worth $400 million. Every single cent of which now belonged to her. But here's the thing, and this is the part that will stay with you long after this story is over. The money was never the point. This is the story of a man who confused a woman's kindness for weakness, her warmth for poverty, and her silence for surrender. And the day he signed those divorce papers was the day he lost the most valuable thing he would ever have, not because of what she was worth, but because of who she was. Welcome to Kindness Arena. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and unseen connections that change lives, please help me prove something wrong. My mother said I wouldn't even reach 1,000 subscribers. Help me show her that stories like this matter and deserve to be heard by hitting the subscribe button, liking the video, comment your thoughts, where you are watching from, and share it with someone who needs it to stay motivated. Your support keeps these powerful true stories alive. The city never truly slept, but it did slow down, and Alex Scott knew that better than anyone. Every morning at 6, before the streets filled with the usual noise of buses and bicycle bells and impatient commuters, Alex unlocked the glass door of Suds and Spins, his laundromat on Meridian Street, right in the heart of the city center. He'd owned it for 7 years. He'd built it from a single row of second-hand washing machines inherited from his uncle into a clean, well-lit, 20-machine operation with folding tables, free Wi-Fi, and a vending machine that actually worked. Alex was proud of what he had built. Deeply, almost stubbornly proud. He was 32 years old, broad-shouldered, with dark eyes that measured everything: the efficiency of a spin cycle, the yield of a quarterly report, the value of a person in units he'd decided on long ago. He was a man who believed the world rewarded the calculated and punished the careless. He had no patience for sentiment. Sentiment, in his experience, was just bad business wearing a warm coat. He met Elana Trevor on a Tuesday in October. The coffee shop 2 doors down from Suds and Spins was called the Fig and Kettle. It was the kind of place that had mismatched chairs and a chalkboard menu and smelled like cardamom and roasted beans from half a block away. Alex had walked past it 1,000 times without going in. He was a black coffee from the gas station kind of man. But that Tuesday, his usual stop was closed for a burst pipe, and the October wind was unforgiving, and so Alex pushed open the door of the Fig and Kettle and stepped inside. She was behind the counter. Elana Trevor was 29, with warm natural hair pinned up loosely beneath a green apron, and a smile that she gave away freely, dangerously freely, Alex would later think, to absolutely everyone. As he watched, she handed a cup of tea to an elderly man who'd been fumbling with his wallet, and she waved off his money entirely. "It's on me, Mr. Harold. You've had a rough week." The old man's eyes glistened. He held the cup with both hands like it was something precious. Alex stepped up to the counter when it was his turn and ordered a black coffee. She made it quickly, efficiently, and when she slid it across the counter, their fingers briefly touched on the cardboard sleeve. "You're the laundromat man," she said. "Alex Scott." "Elana." She tilted her head slightly. "You've never come in before." "My other place was closed." "Well," she said, and that smile again given away for free, like it cost her nothing, "I hope the coffee gives you a reason to come back." It did. For 3 months, Alex came back every morning. He told himself it was about the coffee, which was genuinely excellent. He told himself it was convenient. He told himself many things. By January, he had stopped telling himself anything at all and simply accepted that Elana Trevor had become the best part of his day. She was extraordinary in ways that confused him. She remembered every regular customer's order, their birthdays, the names of their children. She stayed late to mop the floor herself rather than leave it for the morning staff. When a young mother with a screaming toddler knocked over an entire tray of drinks, Elana didn't flinch. She cleaned it up with a laugh, remade everything, and refused to charge her. "You gave that woman her order for free again," Alex said one evening, walking her to her car after her shift. She was mortified. She didn't need to pay for her embarrassment on top of it. "That's not how business works, Elana." She looked at him with curious, patient eyes. "Maybe. But it's how people work." He didn't have an answer for that. It bothered him, but in the way that a pebble in a shoe bothers you, small and persistent and impossible to ignore. He asked her to dinner in February. She said yes. By April, they were inseparable. By December, He had proposed in the back of the laundromat, between folding tables, with a ring he'd saved for quietly and chosen carefully, because whatever else Alex Scott was, he was not a careless man. She said yes, laughing, a little tearful, surrounded by the hum of spinning machines. They married the following spring. The first year was warm. The second year had friction. By the third year, the trouble had a name. Alex had ambitions. He wanted to expand to a second laundromat, then a third, maybe a dry cleaning franchise. He wanted a certain life, polished, respectable, upwardly mobile. And increasingly, he found himself looking at Elana still working her shifts at the Fig and Kettle, still giving things away, still staying late for no extra pay, and feeling something tight and unpleasant in his chest. "You should quit," he told her over dinner one evening. "We're doing well enough. You don't need to work in a coffee shop." Elana put down her fork. "I love that coffee shop. It's not about love, it's about image. My business partners ask about you. What you do. A laundromat and a coffee shop girl doesn't exactly project." "Project what?" Her voice was quite controlled. He hesitated. "Success." The silence that followed was long, and particularly the kind that doesn't end when the conversation does. Over the following months, it became a recurring wound. Alex wanted her to dress differently at social events, to stop being so generous with strangers, to be less warm with people he considered beneath their station. He suggested, then pushed, then demanded. Elana refused. Gently at first, then with growing certainty. "This is who I am, Alex," she said one night. "I was kind before I met you. I'll be kind after. That's not something I'm changing." "Then you're not taking us seriously." "No," she said, and her eyes were clear and steady and terribly sad. "I think you stopped taking me seriously a long time ago." The divorce proceedings lasted 4 months. Elana didn't fight him. She didn't contest the division of their modest shared assets. She kept nothing that wasn't hers, asked for nothing she hadn't brought into the marriage. Her lawyer, a quiet, sharp-eyed woman named Miss Katrina, said very little throughout the entire process, which Alex found odd. Lawyers usually performed. On the last day, in the wood-paneled courtroom on the 4th floor of the city civil building, the papers were signed and the marriage was dissolved. Alex Scott stood outside on the courthouse steps, hands in his coat pockets, watching Elana come through the revolving doors with Miss Katrina beside her. He couldn't help it. Something mean and triumphant had been sitting in him for months, fed by injured pride, by the feeling of being refused, by the small humiliation of a wife who wouldn't be shaped into his vision. He called out to her. "You know," he said, loud enough for the small crowd of people on the steps to hear, his mouth pulling into something that wasn't quite a smile, "you should have listened to me when you had the chance. You're going back to making coffee for strangers. That's your life now. No security, no future." He shook his head with theatrical pity. "You're going to be poor forever, Elana. I hope your kindness keeps you warm." Elana stopped. She looked at him, really looked at him, the way she had on the day he proposed, except this time there was no joy in it, only something clear and final, like a window being closed for the last time. Miss Katrina touched her elbow gently. Elana turned and walked down the steps without a single word. It would have, if Jairus Webb, Alex's accountant and the closest thing he had to a friend, hadn't called him 6 weeks later with a strange, strained voice. "Have you seen the Financial Chronicle this morning?" Alex hadn't. "You should." Alex pulled up the paper on his phone. The headline on the business section read, "Trevor Industries names new chair, Elana Trevor Scott steps into role after father's formal retirement." He read the article 3 times. Raymond Trevor, founder and longtime chairman of Trevor Industries, a privately held conglomerate with holdings in commercial real estate, import logistics, and green energy infrastructure across 6 countries, with an estimated net worth that the article described, conservatively, as north of $400 million, had retired. His only daughter and heir, Elana Trevor Scott, had accepted the chairmanship. Alex sat very still for a very long time. He learned things in the days that followed that rearranged everything he thought he knew. That Elana had always known about her inheritance. That she had chosen to work in the coffee shop herself, truly chosen it, not as a rebellion, but because she genuinely loved the work, loved the people, loved what it felt like to serve someone something warm and simple and good. That her father, Raymond Trevor, was a quiet, principled man who had raised his daughter to know the value of ordinary people, and that Elana had honored that with every free cup of tea she'd ever handed across a counter. Miss Katrina, it turned out, was not a divorce attorney. She was the head of legal affairs for Trevor Industries. She had been present as a courtesy and perhaps, in some private way, as a witness. Alex Scott still owned Suds and Spins. He expanded to a second location the following year, as he'd planned. Business was good. But something had gone out of the pride he used to feel when he locked up at night. He'd stand at the window sometimes, watching the city move outside the glass, the buses, the cyclists, the rush and ordinary beauty of strangers living their lives, and he'd think about a woman who had 400 million reasons to be cold and condescending and had instead spent her days remembering the names of old men and mopping floors and making coffee. He thought about what she'd said, that last argument, the one that had really ended it. "I was kind before I met you. I'll be kind after." He'd heard it as stubbornness. He understood it now as something else entirely, the quiet, unshakable confidence of a woman who knew exactly who she was, and had decided long before he ever walked into that coffee shop that no amount of money or pressure or scorn would ever change it. The cruelest part wasn't that she was rich. The cruelest part was that it wouldn't have mattered if she wasn't. That was what he'd missed. That was what he'd thrown away on the courthouse steps in front of strangers, dressed up as Victory. Elana Trevor chaired her first board meeting on a Thursday morning. She wore a simple dress and low heels. She brought coffee, made it herself, from the machine in the executive kitchen, and set a cup in front of every person at the table before she sat down. Then she got to work. Some people wear their wealth on the outside, so the world can see it. Others carry it so deep within themselves in their patience, their generosity, their refusal to become small, that those who can't read that language will always mistake them for less than they are. Alex Scott made that mistake once. He didn't make it again. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that kindness is never wasted and that even a broken path can lead to beautiful places and change of lives, please like this video, share it with someone who needs a little hope today, and subscribe to Kindness Arena because your support keeps stories like this alive and spreading. Tell us in the comment what you would have done differently if you were Alex Scott. Would you have divorced her? Or has a stranger's kindness ever changed your life in ways you didn't expect? Would love to hear your story.